Hi, everybody. Did you have a break? Are you tired? Okay, let's start. This discussion will talk about gym design, and we are not talking about wall design per se. We're talking about gym design because often it's underestimated how important actually facility design is. And so we will talk about that. I mean, from my experience as a designer, I was designing and building walls for 10 years, and I thought I know exactly what's going on. And then we opened our own gym, and one day later I realized I don't know anything, because operation has totally different demands. And if you are on the other side of the equation and start seeing, oh, I have to walk twice here to do this an operation, I have to walk back, and the toilet is not the right place. So facility design has a very important place in this, and so this is a bit a topic also for maybe future gym owners to understand. Don't just focus only on the walls, but focus on the facility per se. Okay, so we have here 3 people who all have experience as designers, wall builders, and operators, and so that's a very good start to do good design. So to my right I have Ferdinand, Vasil, and Joseph, and we start by introducing Ferdinand.
Hi everyone. First, thanks Patrick for setting this up. It's great to get the opportunity to share what we've learnt along the way in our industry. My background, is probably similar to you. Gym operator first, and then stepping into stacks, gym design, and wall installation. Where Stacks is mainly based in Australia, and we have probably the most experience in bouldering gyms, and and again, like Patrick mentioned, it's quite an interesting journey in that you realize the more facilities you design, the more you tend to think of the off-wall parts rather than the walls only.
Okay, we go to Vasil.
Hey everyone, my name is Vasil, or most of my friends call me Vasco as well. I'm architect by education. I started as a climbing wall designer in Walltopia in 2012, so this is over 13 years. I've designed in so many climbing gyms, maybe in the thousands already. And I've been head of our design and architectural team for quite a while. Right now I'm leading the climbing division. I've seen gyms on all different continents and countries, so many different perspectives and on many different levels of development, let's say. And also from operational point of view, Walltopia is majority shareholder of Momentum Climbing Gyms in USA, where we have gyms in Salt Lake City, in Texas, in Seattle, and our own gym in Sofia, where our HQ office is. I do have a little bit perspective from operational point of view as well. And maybe I'll just quickly show you a few designs that we worked on. This is a gym layout in Switzerland that I really like, a boulder gym. You might have seen before. Nice clean lines. This is in UK, recently built gym. Looking how to use effectively the height when it's a boulder gym in multiple levels, and what sort of zonings you have. This is in terms of, let's say, trends. It's quite popular right now. More minimalistic, simple design with wood. This is in Australia, in Adelaide. This is a full-scale gym with rope walls, which is a new building constructed in more towards families and beginners in Burgos in Spain. Maybe it's interesting topic after this to speak is always good to think about whom you're making the gym, like the end users and the local community. This reflects a lot what decisions you make about specific gym. And this one particularly was more definitely beginner oriented. This is the kids area in the same gym. Yeah, I mentioned we're also operators. This is our brand new gym in Salt Lake City that opened in December. And something maybe later we can also discuss a bit is about capacity and space, not only the climbing walls, but what's in between. And sometimes when we're trying to design a gym, we try to put as many climbing walls as possible and forget about that actually climbing is quite social sport and you need some space to hang out with people. And this gym actually reflects this, that we have left good spacing between the walls for people to hang out, and this has paid off really well. This is part of the boulder area of this gym.
Can you go back here,
Yeah.
just the one picture? I think this is quite important aspect, what you said. You see the wide gangway. Sometimes you say, oh, we don't need a space in between. And then you have people, and then you have more walls, but then you have no space in the walls, and you maybe buy much more surface and you pay much more for the gym. But in the end, you know, most of you guys have been bouldering before, and you see how many people are actually on the wall and how many people are actually on the ground. So you need to create more space for the wall, for the ground, and then you have a ratio of 1 to 6 or 1 to 10 people. In Malaysia, maybe 1 to 10, 1 climb, 10 sit. And in Malaysia and in other places in Asia, people like to sit on the mat. So we have to make this mat very far away with a lot of wide spaces that people are not sitting on the mat. So this is a very important aspect of design.
Yeah, and I think that's where the confidence of the designer is super important, because it's a natural tendency for a lot of clients to feel safer if they have more climbing wall, but actually they end up with a space which is less usable. I mean, people when they boulder, they spend 2-3 hours in facility. It almost needs to be as comfortable as their living room. Otherwise, you're asking them to sit in a space which they're not enjoying. So it's, yeah, the social aspect is extremely important in my opinion.
And if they are in the gym for 2 or 3 hours, how long are they on the wall? So mainly time of a visit, they are sitting on the mat and talking to each other. So that's why I think it's one of the most important spaces you need to take care of.
Yeah, absolutely.
And play good music, because 3 hours of bad music is painful.
Actually, sorry to interrupt you, but this is so important, and like the aspect of music is a part of corporate identity, and you have to really think about what kind of playlist are you playing and the quality of, and you have to control it with your staff, because as much as it is to wear a t-shirt of the brand, as much as it is important, the music plays, the smell when you enter the gym, all this is like very corporate identity which we need to define. And as I say, bad music creates bad vibes, and people are not happy. Maybe they climb, but they don't feel it. They are not that happy as they could be with good song.
In general, as designers, we kind of focus more on the visual aspect, but people have more senses than just this, and you have to think about everything, like light, sound, smell, ventilation, and so on, and how comfortable you are in this space, not only visually.
Okay, maybe that's a good way to introduce Joseph because he hasn't said anything. We don't know who this guy is, so maybe you can introduce.
Yeah, well, hello everybody. I'm Joseph. I'm from Germany, and I would like to thank you all to being here, and also Patrick and the whole organization to host such a nice event and give us the opportunity to step forward and exchange the world of bouldering, climbing gyms, and climbing, which we all love. Yeah, so there's a short impression from our newest gym in Cologne, downtown, in the third, fourth, fifth, and sixth floor with a small rooftop, and just enjoy it for a second. Yeah, that's a short impression. I am the designer of it and also the owner of the Element Bouldering Gyms beside my main task at Bluepill and the distribution company I run in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. But yeah, designing is more than just building walls and a mat in between. So it's about creating a space where people want to spend time. And I think that's a great opportunity for all of us here because we are really diverse, and so depends where you go, the walls, the buildings, everything is different, and we need to take care, in my opinion, on the customer and the group we want to achieve with the gym there.
Okay, that's a good first impression. If you noticed, you saw on his gym in Köln that in Germany sometimes there are mats in between and no walkways. But you know why it works in Germany is because people actually climb all the time and they don't sit on the mat. This does not work. I have one gym where we had this situation, and the problem is then people actually always sitting in the middle of the mat and then sitting actually soon into the fall zone on the other side, and this creates issues. So in an Asian context, I would always design a gym that no wall is on the other side and there is enough space to create at least 1.2 meters. I would even recommend more, 1.5 or 2 meters in between the mattresses to have more space in between.
Yeah, in Australia it's the same. I think the general assumption is that you have a lot of space around you, so even when you don't, so people will sit down and, you know, be comfortable on the mats, and unbeknownst to them, they're in the fall zone. So yeah, for us on our side of the world, I mean in Australia it's the same. We try and avoid large matted areas.
And yeah, I think in element boulders, in this case, it's really important to keep in mind sometimes you're a little bit limited on the building in general, and especially you need the walkways in between the walls if you have a young generation of climbers. If you have a lot of climbers in the gym, which is like your main audience, they are more aware of falling zones, being aware of spotting each other. If it is a young generation of climbers, they don't know how climbing, bouldering works exactly, and that they need to turn around maybe a little bit to having a look if there is enough space to fall or to take other people away from the falling zones. And I would always recommend to give as much space in between the walls to create sitting areas, but also safe falling zones in general.
Yeah, okay. So maybe I would like to ask Vasco for how you guys approach a channel design. Like, what kind of questions you need to have from a client to evolve, how much research we need to do. Maybe you can explore a bit on that.
There are many aspects of the design. Usually one of the first that I start with is to be aware for whom are we designing. I mean, not the actual owner, but the end users. What is it like in your city? What sort of climbers do you have? To what sort of climbers are you targeting? Because this reflects a lot the type of climbing walls that you do. So if you design in Salt Lake City or Boulder, Colorado, where you have lots of strong climbers, it's one thing to do than compared to designing in Burgos, Spain, where there's 0 climbers and you start from scratch. Also, in terms of now with more gyms also getting into the same cities and locations, which is normal with the growth of the industry. You see more gyms trying to differentiate or focus on particular target of climbers. Maybe you're focusing more on young adults, maybe you're focusing more on people that are there to train hard, maybe you're focusing more on kids. And all of those have different needs, and this reflects in how you design or what sort of layout you do. Also, it's good to think about from operational point of view. For example, in the previous presentation, I think Danny was mentioning that much of his gym is about instruction classes and courses. And you need a little bit different spaces for such climbers compared to others. So this is maybe the first thing that I start asking. Also, always think about what's the optimal capacity. And this is an important question to check from start to end. We often ask this in the beginning, but get lost by the end to keep track. Because after all, gym owners are doing this as a business, and it has to be successful, and maybe they've prepared a good business plan based on some metrics, like how many people you need to have in the gym in order to be successful. And we have to reflect this into the design, not to be too little, not to be too much, and it's good to keep track.
Okay, that was a good question to ask. I would like to ask Joseph first, and then Freddy. If you're now in Germany and you have to build a new bouldering gym, what would be the minimum size of the gym in forms of wall space, and how much would you need for that in form of floor space?
Good question. It changed over the last years a lot. So we have, the biggest gym has maybe around 4,000 square meters. We have 3,000 square meters, but it's not about the size of the ground surface, I would say. It's about how much space do you need for the target group and to also run your business in this location. Oftentimes on the location you are a little bit limited on, hey, yeah, I take another 200 square meters here and another one there. So you have the building, if you are, and that's coming more and more, in a good location, which means downtown. And I would say you need 400 square meters, 350 minimum in Germany to run a good gym, with a floor space of around 1,000 square meters. That's a good ratio. If you pack the gym more with walls, for sure you have more walls, which will also cost more, but they are also not efficient because you have a ratio of 1:6, sometimes 1:10, even in Germany, for climbers on the wall and people they are sitting around. That's why you need the space for the people to hang out. And being in the gym means not being on the wall all the time. They want to play table tennis, like in Australia. That's funny to me. They want to play billiard, they want to play dart, they want to hang out in a coffee, and they want to climb. So it's about creating an environment to spend time.
They want to drink beer.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, they want to drink good German, also beer.
Oh, this interesting. Yeah,
Oh,
continue.
sorry, there you go.
1 to 3. 1 to 3, which is interesting. It used to be 1 to 1, then 1 to 2, and now we are 1 to 3.
Yeah.
So if you want to have 350 square meter of climbing, you need 1,000 square meter of surface.
Yeah, I think those. Yeah, I'd agree with those numbers. Roughly speaking, I think. Yeah, to give an example, 600 squares of climbing in a 1,800 square meter building can make for a very, very high capacity gym, a very efficient use of space, I would say. In terms of minimum size, I think targeting at least 400 square meters would be nice. And the way I sort of grab that in my mind is that gives you 4 sectors of 100 square meters. If you're changing a sector a week, that gives you a 4-week turnaround, which is a nice amount of time for people to project. People that will be able to project a climb will probably do it in a month, and then after that they're happy to see it turn over. So it's a good balance of things being on the wall long enough. But those ratios.
He is not 100% agreeable.
You're not going to send it after it.
Yeah, I'm sometimes not that often in the gym anymore because I have work to do. But we got a lot of feedback in Germany. If we have a turnover of 4 weeks only, we are too fast. 8 weeks is too slow. So that's why we have a turnover of 6 weeks. It doesn't matter how big the gym is. If we take the one we have seen in the video, that's around 800 square meters of wall with 140 problems, turnover of 6 weeks. So even it's a bigger one with 300 problems, turnover of 6 weeks. So because all of us, we want to try again. And I think also for me, I'm coming from climbing, I competed back in the days, and what keeps me still psyched on climbing, if I need to try it again. If I flash something, it's nice, I'm happy about it, but it don't get me psyched and it don't get me back to the gym. If I'm close to sending something, I want to go back and sending something. So that's why we also said we want to have the turnover of 6 weeks for the problem that the people have time enough to send their projects. It doesn't matter how hard they are.
Just to clarify, 6 weeks is per sector. It's 6 weeks per sector, not for the whole gym turnover. Yeah, just to understand, we have one sector, we change over the sector, every sector over 6 weeks. So if you have a very big gym, we have more sector. So, but you always want to change over 6 weeks. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, we tend to focus on the size of the sector, the 100 square meter per sector. I don't know. Do you find what size are your sectors on average, roughly?
An average sector has around 20 to 25 problems. So it depends how steep it is. It can be more wall surface or less. We're setting 1 to twice a week. So to have enough new problems a week per grade as well, so that every customer is having new problems every week, but also still having enough time to send their projects.
That was a good question. How many problems are set per setter a day? This is very interesting because I always try to push our setters and they say in Germany they are much faster. So I want to hear it from you.
Sorry. If we have a sector with 20 problems, so we gonna have 3 setters. A setter needs to set in our gyms between 5 to 8 problems a day. If you have, sorry, if you have harder problems, they need to set less. If they have easier problems, sometimes they have to set less. But it's important for us, and it's always the most important thing, that we have a great problem. That's the most important thing, that it is in not a ladder, it needs to be an experience for this climb and the climber. That's the most important thing.
Okay, then I have a question for Vasco, since we talked a lot about walls. Because I think that's one of the big questions. You have 500 square meter surface of a floor surface, And people say, oh, how much can I build? And then the question is, how much do I need for amenity? Because the smaller the gym, the amenity is nearly the same size. What do you, in your calculation, take for, like, the surface for amenities?
I don't have particular formula, let's say, and it can be quite different in various countries depending on what else you're offering in a gym. For example, in USA, it's quite standard to have climbing, fitness, yoga. So you have decent amount of fitness gym as well, at least one large yoga studio. Some gyms are adding like saunas and other amenities. Some are focusing more on birthday parties and some team events where you need separate spaces for this. So this can vary quite a lot from like 10% to 50%. Something I also see varying a lot in different places and also in time. How much space you leave for like something as simple as lockers. And sometimes people make way too little, and this is uncomfortable for the clients. But also, I've seen on the other aspect, way too much, and people prefer also to carry their backpacks with them in the gym. But then you need to think about, okay, I need space for this as well over there.
The lockers is interesting, and I have a project in the Philippines where we were saying we cannot have the lockers in the changing room because then stuff gets stolen, because we don't have CCTV in there, so it has to go outside.
Yeah.
And then in Europe, that's not even a topic, but here it's a topic. So cultural aspect has also.
I've heard this in Europe as well, actually.
Yeah, in Bulgaria, of course.
No, I think also in other countries. In Germany, it's not the part yet, but it's also coming that lockers moving out to the gym, and people take their stuff with them in the gym. They're having, beside a small jog bag, they're having a bucket where a different t-shirt is in, a water bottle. So you need a lot of space, and also to be aware of this.
Yeah, and another thing as well, I think it's probably the gripe of a lot of gym owners, but things piling up in the cafe areas as well. So the strategic location of your areas are actually quite important. Taking a page out of IKEA's book, having a shop on exit and things like these, all these elements are very important. And I think they can make a meaningful difference, to whether people actually use those amenities or, browse the shop, etc.
I mean, we in our gyms, if we do not have enough pigeonholes, or we call them pigeonholes, then the bags are everywhere. And then you have an absolute mess. And I remember you guys most probably know Innsbruck. It's one of the biggest gym in the world. And they have around the lead climbing area, they have all pigeonholes. And they basically have the staff constantly telling the people that they have to put it in the pigeonholes, because people don't want to put it, they want to have it close to where they'll be laying, and they want to have the bag behind them. And so it's like a police telling them where it has to go.
Yeah, and I think that's, in a way, that sort of encapsulates the greater point of being careful with gym design. It's every error that you make, you're going to have to repair it with labor, with hours spent asking your staff, and it also becomes almost an impossible task to have staff going out to constantly tell people to not to do this, not to do that, and it just ends up not really being done. So it's important to try and think about these aspects on the front end rather than sort of worry about it later and then be plagued with this issue that's virtually unfixable.
We can continue talking, or we can take some questions from the crowd. Anybody have a question? Of course you have a question.
All the gyms you showed up very nice, very big. Okay, so I would assume a big gym you need a long lease to appreciate the cost of doing. In the Asian context, right, especially Southeast Asia, your lease time is like 5 years, 5 plus 3. So the risk of
Yes, there is actually. And we've been working on some gyms like this. First, you have to think about how to design the walls that are flexible or modular, that can go into different spaces. And we've had some clients that actually move their walls. So all of our steel structure, wooden structure, panels, etc., is made in a way that can be disassembled and moved somewhere else. And if you plan the various zones in a way that they can be changed and both changed and moved, this is possible, and it's not too difficult to be done, in my opinion. Also, yeah, we were speaking about minimum size of a gym. You can actually make quite small gym also nice looking, including like all the way up to like 200 square meters of a space. You can make a nice gym over there, and there such gyms around. In maybe the location is quite good. Yeah, it's short term, but it's worth to try. You can do this with self-standing climbing walls that are kind of independent of what's in this location and where they might go in the future as well. And it's in general not only for short leases, but even for longer leases, it's important to think about how a particular design will stand the test of time. Would it be still a good one after 5 years or 10 years? Even if you don't move to a new place, you don't want to change the walls that often. And this is very hard topic to predict what will be climbing after 5 to 10 years. But if you go back in history and see what the boulders were like in 2015, they were very different than now. And if we try to leave less limitations for how the sport will grow, this will help you to use your walls more and more again, no matter the new or same location.
For me, I would say it's also important whether you have a boulder gym or a rope gym. Like for us, I would never sign a lease for 5 years in a rope gym, because in a rope gym it's much less modular and you cannot just move, and you do a lot of changes in the infrastructure. You invest a lot of money. The mall sometimes invest money as well to actually have that size. Or, and I'm talking here Asian content where we talk about malls or building. And so there is a lot of investment from landlord and you. And then I would never sign a 5-year lease, because it's really, really hard to get out. But on a boulder concept, I mean, you can work cheaper walls, or even like, okay, I don't care, after 6 years I throw them away or whatever. Focus more on handholds, which is a Japanese concept. I mean, of course, Walltopia doesn't want that. None of them wants to listen to that because they want to sell the panels. But it's no, I mean, it's a kind of it's a kind of concept. And Japan, I mean, do we have some Japanese here? Yeah, I mean, you guys have. I was once at a project with B-Pump many years back, and they said, can you build this in 3 weeks? Here, Malaysia, design, manufacture, send, because we have 3 weeks fit-out period. And say, sorry, it takes 2 weeks to transport. And so that is a reality in Japan. So that means carpenter, bang, 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 put it up, and then focus on a handhold. So it's a total different reality than, let's say, in Germany or in Europe. So I think it's very based on the content of the country.
Yeah, when we get approached to design in spaces that size, for me the most important thing to focus on is really understanding the demographic that's being chased and being laser focused about that demographic and designing for that demographic. Because I think with the smaller spaces, it's difficult to cater for everyone, and I think if you do that, in a sense, you end up doing a well, not as good a job as you could, as if you at least restricted that that target audience. Yeah, that would be one of the important things to focus on, I think.
Actually, good question here. When you design, do you like how much of constraints you like? Do you like a lot of constraints? Is it easier to design with a lot of constraints?
I would say definitely easier. When I was studying architecture, in my very first year, one of my first projects that I have to do had like no limit. You had like open field, you can build whatever building you want, no restrictions. And it's actually, in a way, it sounds like a dream job, but then when you start designing, it's not so easy. You kind of need something to start with, or also to justify the decisions you make and to guide you. Otherwise, you see the end result, and it's kind of difficult to say, is it successful or not? So in a way, it's easier to when you have some constraints. And also another interesting part, we were actually speaking with Joseph just before this, whether it's easier to build a gym in existing location or to start from scratch, like on an empty land and build up a building. It sounds, both of those options have their pros and cons and challenges, let's say. But when I think about some of the favorite gyms that I've seen, they're actually in existing location where you have to be, to think harder and be more creative to find solutions compared to if you make a ground up building, and very often you end up with maybe more boring box and more sterile environment. So I like to be challenged with some constraints, is the answer.
Me neither, and I think especially in an existing building, the existing building has a type of character themselves, colors, surfaces, materials, which you can pick and use it again to give it a special vibe for the bouldering or climbing gym. So that's why I also prefer to design a gym, it doesn't matter if it is a big or a small one, in an existing building, to use this and make it even more pretty with the bouldering or lead area in addition.
Yeah, I was once asked when you had a discussion about design, and then it was like, oh, what is the perfect gym? And then, okay, draw it for me. And then you're lost, because what is the perfect gym? But then you have a building, and then you know, okay, then you try to build the perfect space inside of that constrained building. And that's definitely, for me, it's definitely much easier than drawing a box. Innsbruck, I talked about Innsbruck. Innsbruck is based on a box. But it took a lot of approach to get this right. And still it's not right.
Everything changes, and maybe it was right 10 years ago, now something else is new and more important, and what is right today maybe is wrong tomorrow. So we have to adapt all the time. Definitely growing boulders. I would even say right now 50-50. It depends on the country and the location, but yeah, bouldering is on the rise. Like 10 years ago, it was barely 10%, let's say, are boulders. Now it's more like 50-50.
But lead is not dead. Lead is not dead.
No, in fact, we're starting to see in Australia.
Oh, because we're all getting older.
Yeah,
we're all getting older, and all these new kids that don't have a problem to jump down from the top of the boulder, will have not such a flexible back when they are 50. And
Yeah.
then they will go back to top roping and lead.
Yeah.
And then we need a lot of lead gyms.
Yeah.
That's absolutely a good point. With all the big growth of boulders, eventually they will want something else as well. Because we all know when you start climbing, it's forever. You don't want to stop. But your body might be more challenged. And yeah, if we see now more boulders, I do expect this to go back again to a little bit more rope walls in the next years, maybe then something else, I don't know.
Okay, that's another question. You build a full-flash gym, full service. What is the ratio of bouldering and lead and top rope? What is your recommendation?
I would say in terms of capacity, 50-50%. It depends on the market and what else is offered. If there's nothing else around, I would say 50-50% in terms of capacity. However, with boulders, you can achieve more capacity with less climbing surface. So in the end of the day, in terms of climbing surface area, investment both for the climbing walls and also for having a higher space and the maintenance of this space, you have bigger investment for the rope walls, but also potentially bigger variety of users or climbers that can use it from youngest to oldest age, while boulders is of course a bit more limited in terms of age for the climbers.
Same. You had a question? I think it also depends on the country, because we have some realities here as well, especially in metropolitan areas like in Asia, where real estate is really expensive. I mean, talking Singapore, it's not easy to find big spaces. There is a trend that the gym's getting bigger, and I mean, I don't know, maybe not, but
in Germany there is
I
an
think it's-
opposite trend, I would say even.
Yeah, it's both directions.
yeah,
The climbing starts to differentiate, and there are people that prefer smaller, more cozy spaces, and there are people that would like the big variety and options for the big gyms. So
Yeah.
I see both of them coming.
And there's also, I think there's like a fragmentation also of the clientele. Obviously, you know, some people are looking for gyms maybe that are more slanted towards steeper walls or things like that. So I think there's little sort of pockets, and the people building these gyms understand that they don't need a mega gym. They just need a gym that specifically caters to that target audience, and that's what they're targeting.
I mean, here in Asia, it's there's two factors that influence. First is proximity. If you go in a place like Manila or Jakarta, where it takes you 2 hours to get to another space, you will choose to be in your proximity, and then you will choose your home gym, and maybe on the weekend you go further. So this is very important in this context. And then the other thing is, I mean, what is available in the city? What size is available? Because from an operator's point of view, expansion would be better in your existing location. If you have to do a second location, let's say you have one gym only, and now you decide, I want to have my second gym, you have suddenly double the amount of overhead, double the amount of staff, and then when you go for a third gym, you have 30% more. But then you started diversifying and you have more staff, and maybe it would be a good idea to expand that existing gym, because then you still have the same amount of operation overhead, but you have more capacity. So this And then it also, of course, then comes down, can I even expand? So my recommendation is always, if you have the luxury to get into a location that you possibly can expand, choose that one, because then you can maybe add another 100, 200 square meters. Remember the discussion we had, can we have that other 100 square meter there, which would be so great to have, then we can have another room there. And of course, then the mall said, no, no, it's somebody else. Maybe in 3 years' time, they give it to you because they believe in you as a tenant. So you never know.
This actually comes often into thinking about when you design a climbing wall, to think about it in some phases, both in case there's option where to grow, but think about this growth from the beginning. So you plan, okay, where I would like to be in 3 years or 5 years, and what you need from the facility in those years. And even if you don't have the space to expand and you have just the location and the square meters over there, you could phase it out. Maybe you're not sure how the market will develop. So I've had cases where we don't build up the entire space. We intentionally leave some zone which is less dense, but then plan, okay, after 1 year, when the gym operator sees, okay, I need maybe a little bit more advanced terrain, and this is what I will add in this empty zone. Or maybe I would like, I've seen more kids coming in the gym, and I would like to add more space for them. So this is interesting strategy, if possible, to think about how you develop the gym in a few phases inside.
Okay.
I think that just quickly, I think one of the important considerations is obviously the shape of your building, because these ratio works under the assumption that you have a nice rectangular box, but I think it's just the details matter there. I think, but you could potentially push that ratio for sure. I mean, I know of gyms that are operating on a 1:1 ratio, and yes, it's the capacity of the gym is hindered by how close the walls are, but ultimately, they're able to cater to a larger capacity. So it could be a compromise that needs to be made.
I would totally agree with this, and I think it really matters who you want to reach, and the details in the building. Do you have 500 square meters with a high ceiling? Great, you can add another 300 mezzanine. Easy, you have 800 square meters. Do you have only 5 meters height? You can't. So, and stuff like this matters a lot to make a gym in general working for the customers you're reaching for. Do you want to have the kids as well, kids classes, birthday parties as well? Then you need a separated area, which is hard to cut off in a 500 square meter building. Do you only focus on climbing, beginners, intermediate, and stronger ones? Then you can go for a higher ratio, but it really matters on how you get everything in, check-in, changing rooms, coffee, and what you want to offer.
Yeah, the kids portion is it's so important. I think it's extremely difficult to cater for both kids and what would be considered like a regular bouldering clientele in a building. Like the smaller the building gets, because obviously with the danger of someone falling on kids and kids not having the spatial awareness, it's very difficult to do so.
It's not only this, but like kids have different needs. Like, how do you make like route setting for kids where they're like different height, different size, different level of climbing? It's not the same as for adults. Even the products themselves, maybe the mats where they fall, maybe they're too hard for them. But if you make soft for the kids, maybe they're too soft for the adults. So yeah, it starts to be, you have to differentiate this. And if you have really small space, my advice is don't try to make a gym that fits all of the climber types. Pick one or two and focus on them instead of trying to cramp absolutely everything that you can offer in this. This is some initial step even before the starting the design that you have to answer for yourself. Who do you want to target? What's best for your city? And this will save you lots of time after this when designing the gym.
Yeah, one of the things we like, just on that point, one of the things we like to do at the start of the design is actually have the clients fill out a jot form. And we ask pretty generic questions like, what's your climbing background? You know, what are your favorite climbing areas, both natural and indoor, and all these things to sort of really, number one, understand them, but often when it's a, you know, if there's two owners or something like that, have them have that conversation as well, because they might have decided to open this gym together, but maybe they never got to the granular points, and that can really drive the design and help you, you know, if you have those restrictions of a smaller space, to, yeah, again, sort of stay focused on the clientele and deliver a design which really fits the brief.
I think that needs to be done with the client, the need statement, that you actually really know what is needed, what they need. And the other thing I wanted to say here, especially in Asian content, I think the future will show more diversification, as you say, or specialization. And I think it's always worth to think about, shall I focus on kids? Shall I really, and in Asia, there is a lot of kids, and the parents have a lot of money for their kids. So it's always a good idea to think about kids. But then you have to integrate that, and maybe like there are gyms in London, for example, that are purely children gyms, and they don't bother about the rest, but they make very good numbers. So I think Asia now, we have many new gyms coming, and they basically just copy what there is. But my recommendation is, as if you're a gym owner, think about what you want, and maybe you go in a direction others don't have, and then have a competitive edge in your specialty. I think that could help. Or have various gyms where one is really focused on kids, the other one has a bit of other character. I think that will come and will be very exciting to see. Any last question? Budget. Yeah, if you have budget, you don't bother about structure. No,
I was just say, yeah, budget. Avoid top-out boulders, which are more expensive, I guess. One recommendation.
I can give you an example. You guys, most of you know Stone Goat, but before Stone Goat, the same people had an idea to open another gym, which was called Ape Factor. And I went to their building in Thailand, which had a lot of structural issues. But then the cost to repair the structural issues were so high that it was just not worthwhile to do it. But in general, if you're in a normal building where you have normal floor space, 150 millimeter RC floor with concrete walls or steel, and it's actually windproof, the wind forces on a building are normally stronger than your climbing wall that you build onto it. So it's actually never really a structural issue. Every time we go into a new wall, we have with new clients, the mall or the owners, the landlords ask, oh, is it strong enough for us? And they say, look, did you make a calculation for your wind forces in your place? Or maybe in Taiwan, you have like a typhoon there. So your building is definitely strong enough for a climbing wall. So I think a structural issue, unless you have sand floor or whatever, is normally not really a problem.
Especially for boulders, it's like almost negligible. Yeah, if you make like really steep lead wall, which is like 10-meter overhang for a World Cup, maybe, but yeah, most of the cases this is not an issue.
And if you work with a serious wall manufacturer, they have always an option to come up with a solution, even if maybe somewhere it's not absolutely perfect, there is always a solution. Sometimes the floor is 100 mm, but then you can build to the RC structure behind. It's also fine. So there is always, I've really never, I mean, is Sean here, Sean Verley? Yeah, remember the first gym where actually the building was so weak that we had to design or engineer the climbing wall to support the building. And that was the solution. So it actually worked, and he had his first bouldering gym in Vietnam, and that was cool. And so engineering helped to keep the building together. So there is a solution. Okay.
Well done.
So any last words from you guys?
One more question.
Ah.
Your structures uses timber, right?
Yes.
So from an engineering perspective, will you be able to get a PE certification for it?
Yes. Yes, we get.
Because in Singapore, we have, I think the city wall is at Lighthouse, wooden timbers. There was some issue getting the local authorities to accept the PE certification for the building.
Yeah, so that would be a good question to my colleague who's in charge of all the certificates for things like this. We have built gyms in other countries, but then we always need to be aware of the situation in this country, and then we would ask for what certifications do you need, how is it in the city, and then we would step forward and getting to a point where we can say yes, that works, or that doesn't work.
In general, it's not a problem to make it out of wood. It's a matter of calculation of what size of profiles to make from wood, from steel. We've worked with both, and it's not a problem to do this. Often people are scared about the wood because, for example, in terms of fire, and most people think about the wood as super dangerous in terms of fire, but actually untreated steel is equally or more dangerous than wood because when under high heat, the steel gets into elastic stage where all the columns start bending and they will fall down. While wood, in terms of fire, the fire gets into the surface of the wood, not deep inside, and it takes longer time to actually burn down to a stage where it collapses, and this can be proven with the project and certification of what sort of treatment you do to the materials. So both of those can work. Maybe for Asia, where in many places it's quite humid, the maintenance of wooden structures might be a bit more tricky, and it's easier to go with steel. But yeah, for both their solutions.
Okay, I think we have gotten to the end of time. It was a very interesting discussion. I think there could be talk much more. Thanks for your questions.